Thank you for coming today. What a wonderful blessing it is for us to be able to share some of the things we learned. This last year, they have in Salt Lake a what do we call it? A festival. They call it Roots Tech. The Roots Tech is a gathering of all the family history enthusiasts from around the world. And when Brother Weber came to me and he says, "Why can't we have one here?" I says, "Why not? Let's do this." So the amazing thing that they have is they have all sorts of speakers. And so that's what we're going to have today. We're going to have some wonderful speakers to be able to talk to you. We're going to have some people to teach you. We're going to give you some opportunities to be able to do that. But this whole thing is centered around one major purpose. And that major purpose is building families. It's interesting where family history started years and years ago and where it is today. And let me just share my experience of what I've had, and then hopefully it'll be similar to yours and where you're going. And maybe you can gather some of the enthusiasm that has been building over the time. I remember back when I turned 8 years old, and I don't have my original one, but I have the one that I did here. My grandma was a genealogy enthusiast. She gathered me together and she sat me down and she had me fill out my family history sheets, and you'll probably remember these old ones like this. And that's what we had. And she would give me these, and in fact, here's one of the first things she gave me when I turned 12. And she gave me this, and I kept all these histories and all the things like this. And I thought, wow, this is hard. Because I would see her go down in the basement at her house, and she would work for hours looking for names, and then she'd go to Salt Lake, and she'd go to the genealogy library, and she'd come back with one name or two names. And she did that. And I remember when, right before my grandmother passed away, she had found the last few names that she was looking for, and she had taken them to the temple, and she had done the work for them, and she came back, and she had a stroke, and passed away. And I thought, wow. She had file cabinets full of history. And I always wondered and I was just a kid at this time, I wondered, what happens to those histories? All the things that she gathered, because they were in her basement and nobody could get to them. And I thought, oh my goodness, all that work, and where does it go? And so the church, thank goodness, has all these things, and you can turn in all the records, and they'll put them in the library up there, and they'll microfiche them, and they'll share them. And then I saw the technology that just went wild. And I remember the first time that we actually set up a family history library at the Colony building. Elsie Weltmer and Mike Carter were the ones that set that up, and we would go in there, and they actually had 3.5-inch discs that you could go and plug in. We had microfiche that we could order from Salt Lake, and we had things that we could do. And I remember when we first got these things, and we could actually get the records from Salt Lake. And I sat in there. I remember one time I sat in there and I started plugging things in, and I went from about 6 in the evening until 3 in the morning trying to download histories. And I thought, man, if that's the only way I can get it, this is hard. Nowadays, I pull up my iPad, and it's all there. I can get everything that I'd ever want on that iPad. And if I can't get it there, then I can go to Salt Lake and can do those things. But I think that we've changed from just looking for names. And this is where I would hope that we go from today. We go from just finding names to finding people. And that finding people means that we know more about them than just what's on these records. You know, when I look here, it has they were born, they were married, they died, they're buried here. That was all that there was. And I don't think that that's what we really want to do. To me, that's not history. That's just documentation. And so, as we start transforming and we start looking at it, finding the names are important, but understanding the history behind the names is even more important. Let me share something. Now, my father-in-law passed away 2 years ago. He spent the last 3 years of his life writing a history. This was it. All color. And when he was born, to right before he died. And then he published it. Now, this last week, as we're going through the home, and we're taking the things, the earthly belongings that belong to my father-in-law, and saying, who wants this, and who wants that, and who wants this. It was interesting. The earthly belongings don't really mean much. You know, there's certain things. I wanted his pan when he made fudge. That's what meant something to me. This is priceless. This is priceless. This is what he was. This is his history. This is how he comes alive. Okay? To my kids, to my grandkids, to my great-grandkids when they come along, and to my great-great-grandkids when they come along. That's what means important to me. And so as you're looking at family history, look to the people. Understand the people. It's interesting. I would always ask people, do you love your parents? And the answer is usually yes, 9 times out of 10. What do you know about them? What stories do you have? What pictures do you have? Those are the things that make family history alive. That's what's important. Those are the things that happen. You know, when I can drive down the street, and I took my wife for a walk this last week, and we walked the streets of the hometown where my dad was born, where he was raised, where my grandfather lived, where their old house was, where the church was, all the memories that we had there. And then I thought, are they recorded? I don't know if anybody's ever written down all those things. And so that's the history that we're looking at. You know, we've made it very simple and very easy. Kids, when they're this age, can start with this book and start filling out names and pictures and histories and things of that sort. Then when we get old like me, then you have to start doing some big things like this. Start recording. It can be as easy as downloading an app and putting your memories on your phone. It can be that easy. And then that will be passed on to generations and generations. That's what we're looking for. I hope that as you leave today, that you will have the energy and the excitement to go home and to do something. And that something can be go gather a picture, write the date on a picture, write the names on a picture, do whatever it is, write a short history, write about the funniest thing that ever happened to you in your life. Put it on a card, file it away, and then in 10 years, pull all those cards out and then write a book. That sounds undaunting to be able to do that, but you can do that. You can do those sort of things. That's what we're looking for. We've got some great teachers here today to be able to teach you how to do some of those things. We've got some people here that are going to tell us about the history of our local area. And you're probably, how many native Texans have we got here? Not counting the little ones. Okay. We've got at least 5. 5 native Texans. How many imports have we got? Okay? We're going to learn something about Texas today. And so I hope that you'll learn about Texas. I hope that you'll learn about the area where you live so you can share it with your kids and be able to do those sort of things. We're all Texans by choice. So let's do something with it. Texans are proud of their heritage. Texans are proud of being Texans. Yeehaw, that's right. Or as we say in the Army, yeehaw! So let's learn and let's understand. It would be my prayer that when you walk out of here today, that you've caught that genealogy bug. I always say that if you go back and you do some of the things where you start extracting some of the names. Do some extraction. That's the beginning drug for family history. And once you do that, then you're addicted and you'll be stuck with it the rest of your life. That's what my hope would be. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for spending the time. May the Lord be with you, and may you be able to feel the spirit of Elijah as you turn the hearts of the fathers to the children. May we all do that. In the name of Jesus Christ.
Thank you, President. It's my opportunity now to introduce our keynote speaker. And while this is a community event, we are in a church, and so I do want to reference the scripture that President Alma just mentioned. And you heard the song where we all know in the Old Testament where Malachi talked about turning the hearts of the children to their fathers. And our keynote speaker, I think, really embodies that. You'll have an opportunity to hear about his father and his family, who are an integral part of this history. We are a group of transplants. This is a chance to truly realize that we're living family history today, and we can learn about the history of the Frisco area. So I'm happy to introduce Douglas D. Box, and he is a family business consultant based in Dallas, Texas, son of the legendary oil man and industrialist Cloyce K. Box. Doug has worked in his family business all his life. The Box family controlled a number of public and private companies with interests in oil and gas, cement, manufacturing, and real estate. He's also written this book that you're probably going to hear about today called Frisco. And so it's exciting to be able to have a local speaker, but also a local published author. And in that book, he talks about the often untold tale of what life is really known on the Box Ranch, which is actually just, the original Box Ranch is just south of us here on El Dorado, known today as the Brinkman Ranch. In anecdotes, both sweet and bitter, the youngest Box son remembers what it was like to grow up as a member of Texas royalty. If Frisco had a first family, the Boxes were it. In fact, Doug's father was the storied patriarch and entrepreneur, as I mentioned, Cloyce K. Box, thought by many to be the inspiration for Dallas's own J.R. Ewing. Doug attended college at the University of Texas at Austin. He received an MBA with honors from Baylor University in 2004 and a master's in dispute resolution from SMU in 2011. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Box.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm honored to be here today at Frisco Family Discovery Day. And this is like a homecoming for me. And I was really interested in your talk, Stuart, about how many newcomers there were to the area. I want to, first of all, point your attention to this opening slide. If you're wondering what this is a painting of the original South Fork Ranch that served for the setting for the TV show Dallas that started back in 1978. Yes, the TV show Dallas started about a mile from here on the Brinkman Ranch, and this is what the house looked like in its heyday. Built and designed in 1942 by a renowned architect named John Aston Perkins, it was designed to look like Hera in the movie Gone with the Wind. Remember the old Clark Gable Gone with the Wind? It's an old movie now, I know. But it was designed to look like that. So it's kind of interesting to drive by that property today, because it indeed appears to be Gone with the Wind. And that's a big part of why I wrote this story. I'll talk more about that story, but first, because Stu's talked so much about genealogy, I wanted to talk about some of the genealogy work that I've done. This is a picture of me when I was 10 years old. I was on a Texas history trip, and I was completely clueless. I was bored to tears. And I didn't look kind of clueless, but boy, I had a lot of hair. I wish I had. I'd give anything for that hair today. And so, yes, sure. Thank you. Okay, how's that? Any better? Yeah, a little better. Okay, so I had no idea at the age of 10 about my ancestry because it was difficult back in those days to research this stuff. A lot harder than it is today. When I started writing this book, Frisco, I started doing a little bit of research. I jumped on this thing called Ancestry.com. I'm sure you've heard of it. And it took me about 15 seconds to realize that my great-great-grandfather was James Edward Box. This is a picture of him. He fought in the Battle of San Jacinto, which was the decisive battle for the independence of Texas. Here is his name, along with three of my ancestry cousins. James Edward Box John Box, Nelson Box, and Thomas Box. I thought that was pretty cool. If I'd had any idea when I was 10 years old that my great-grandfather was one of the patriarchs of Texas history, I would have thought it was pretty cool. So anyway, I thought I would, it's just so easy to do this stuff today, and it literally took me about 20 seconds after logging on to Ancestry.com. This wasn't like pulling out the old card catalog thing and doing a bunch of research. It just popped right up. So, the book Dan mentioned, Cover Frisco, we'll get to that here. This is what the house used to look like when we grew up there. My dad bought this property in 1965. The original acreage was 200 acres. Now, does everybody know where this is? You realize you're about half a mile away from where this is. This is on the Brinkman Ranch that you drive by all the time, except the house is no longer there. In its place is this skeleton. And a lot of people don't even know what the heck it is. Someone was earlier telling me today that people have bizarre ideas as to what this place was or is. And someone was thinking it was part of a sporting auditorium or something like that. But anyway, this is the house that I grew up in. I was 8 years old when we moved there. What do you think my father paid for this piece of property in 1965? It was a 14,000 square foot home, had a swimming pool, 4 ancillary houses, you know, like a foreman's house, barns, corrals, swimming pools, you name it. What do you think he paid for this property? $250,000. My first takeaway is buy real estate, never sell. How many of you own real estate in Frisco? No. Don't sell. Well, maybe a good time to sell. I don't know. I'm not going to go there. This is an interesting photograph. I showed this to Dan yesterday. He got a real kick out of it. This is what the house looked like. And I'm going to ask you, who do you think these people are? This shows you just how much Frisco has grown. This is the entire senior high school class of Frisco High School in 1969. The entire senior high school. They only had one high school, Frisco High School. They were known as the Frisco Coons. They made them change that name. They thought it was a racist undertone. They made them change the old water tower. It used to say, "Welcome to Frisco, home of the Fighting Coons." They made them, which was a big deal, big controversy. People got really upset as Frisco changed. People thought that Coons was pejorative, and they changed it to Fighting Raccoons. So they're now the Frisco Raccoons. But for a long time, they were the Frisco Coons. This is the entire high school class of 1976 with the old house. They chose to have their picture taken back there. So let's just give you a few ideas of what the old house looks like. I don't want you guys to be confused about what I'm talking about. This is not the South Fork Ranch. This is the South Fork Ranch, the one that's on TV, but ours was the original. And the backstory to this is they did the first 5 shows right here in your backyard, and then my dad kicked them off the ranch because they were disruptive to his motorcycle. More on that later on. So as a result, this house, this is what it seems to look like today. Now it's hard to look at because Mr. Brinkman has built these huge berms, which I don't understand. He didn't consult with me before he did that. But they're there and we have to deal with it. But this is what the house looks like today. And so the reason why I wrote this book is as Frisco continued to grow so much, I realized, you know, there's a heck of a lot of people that are driving by this place and they have no clue what this place used to be, but they have to well imagine it had to be something. It had to be something pretty grand, and indeed it was. To give you an idea as to the location and size of this property, I did a couple of Google screenshots here on my computer. So this is, you know, basically Collin County, roughly, from like, I don't know, 30,000, I don't know if it's really 30,000 feet. I didn't have a tape measure when I took this picture. It might be less than that. Here, as we zoom in a little closer, you can begin to see the size and magnitude of this property. Okay, this is 121. This sort of line going that way. This This is Preston Road. Right here, that's Preston Road, if you can see it. Of course, this is Main Street. So if we zoom in a little bit closer, you can see that a little bit easier. And I think we are, aren't we about right here?
What?
Right here?
Middle.
Oh, this?
Yeah.
More like that. Okay. So you can see how big this property is. When I was writing the book, I went and consulted with Ross Perot's real estate guy. I said, is this land that used to be in my family, is it the most valuable piece of real estate in North Texas, raw land? And he said, well, there's one or two other nice properties out there, but if I had my choice, I'd take the old Box Ranch because of its location. And you know, you guys know the story because now here is the this is the old homestead aerial view. There's a pond in front of it, and this is the old homestead. Somebody was mentioning a racetrack before. I don't know if it's Chuck or Dan or somebody was asked. You're asking. Okay, you can see part of the racetrack here. This was a part of the horse training facility. Okay, just to give you an idea as to how big this ranch is. This area right here, I don't know how many acres that is. What is that, about 40 acres maybe? You could put that little piece of land in, all that fits just right here. A little teeny part of the ranch. This is an enormous piece of property. So clearly, as to the future development of this area, this really, Mr. Brinkman really holds the future development. Even if, as someone said, even if he chooses not to develop it, it's going to affect development because stuff's going to develop around it. But he is going to develop it, and you're starting to see some of that stuff in the paper. So, now, a little bit of a backstory. We're here to talk about family history. How is it then that my family could just show up in 1965 and just plop down and say, we're going to have horses, and we're going to be cowboys, we're going to do all this stuff? How could we pull that off? What was there so special about my family that would allow us to do that, to live that larger-than-life lifestyle? Well, it all had to do with this rather remarkable man named Cloyce Fox. And he was a guy, like a lot of great men, who grew up with absolutely nothing. This was the childhood home that he grew up in Central Texas. He was born in 1923, so at the beginning of the Great Depression, he was 6 years old. He literally grew up with his three siblings during the worst economic downturn in U.S. history. Athletics and the military and athletics allowed him to escape his impoverished circumstances. He was a Marine officer, joined in 1942, stationed in China, was part of the Korean conflict. He was called back because he was a reservist. He and his brother were also phenomenal athletes. My dad had an unusual name. His name was Cloyce, and Cloyce had a twin there on the left, and Cloyce's name was Boyce. How's that for Texas? Boyce and Cloyce, the Fox twins. And as they grew up, here's a picture of my dad as Marine Chuck. Where's Chuck? Chuck's left the building. Okay. No, there you are. Sorry.
I know where.
There's Dad in his Marine.
Hoorah!
Yeah, right. I made the mistake of saying, you know, my dad was an ex-Marine, and Chuck corrected me and says, no, your dad's not an ex-Marine. Your dad's a Marine. There is no such thing as an ex-Marine. Right on?
Right on.
Okay. Professional football. I played 5 years for the Detroit Lions. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, the Detroit Lions? These people are losers. No. No, they're not. Back in the 50s, you know the last time, I looked this up, the last time the Detroit Lions won the world championship, you know what year that was? The year I was born, and I'm not young, 1957. But in the decade of the 50s, the Lions had one and only one dynasty. They were world champions in 52, 53. They lost the game in 54, but they went to the game in 57. For Lions fans, it doesn't get any better than that. And sure enough, my dad used professional football to really serve as a stepping stone for his career in corporate America. And he scaled the American dream. Now, we don't have that much time to sit, I could talk literally all day and tell stories about my dad till the cows come home. But I thought what I'd do is show you a video about him, and you're going to see a lot of stuff in there. You're going to see Frisco in there. You're going to see the house again, and you're going to see the sort of larger-than-life values that this guy had. You're going to see humility. You're going to see philanthropy. You're going to see a lot of cool stuff. So let's take a look at this. We're not going to hear it, though, if we don't turn the thing on.
One, a star of...
I'm going to run that back because I don't want you to miss the beginning.
In their glorious history, the Detroit Lions have featured many players of enduring fame, and at least one, a star of more than 3 decades ago, who went on to great fortune without forgetting the guys he played with. Tough, colorful Bobby Lane quarterbacked those Lion teams of the 50s, world champs in 52 and 53. In addition to Lane, Coach Buddy Parker boasted stars like Doak Walker, Yale Larry, Leon Hart, and 6'4", 220-pound receiver Cloyce Box. Box played 5 years with the Lions, but was never exactly your typical pro football player. While still active, he was studying for a law degree. Later, investments in oil, construction, and real estate would help the native Texan amass a fortune. He resides now on this estate in Frisco, Texas, just outside Dallas. It's a path that has taken him far away from the NFL and most of his old teammates. But somehow a bond remained, and 4 years ago, Cloyce Box arranged a reunion at Super Bowl 16 in Pontiac, Michigan. At a dinner hosted by Box, each of the old Lions received championship rings and a copy of the game film from the 1952 title contest with the Browns.
Cloyce did the thing, he did the whole thing, and this is when we brought back the living players from 53, and it was a great occasion. I wouldn't have missed it for anything. It was just a great thing.
Tell Ray the truth, Bobby, that Nick was so cheap back in those days, he wouldn't give us a ring, and that was the last championship team that didn't get a championship ring, so we gave him all rings. I don't have mine. He probably has all 3 of these and 3 extras.
One more thing. That winter in Detroit, Cloyce Box established a trust fund for the purpose of helping former NFL players in financial difficulty. Box's donation, $1 million. Obviously, football is only a part of your life, and it's a distant part at this point, but it must hold some special memories for you, must still be compelling in some way, because when the time came to select a charity that would receive $1 million of your own money, this is the one you selected.
I just felt might serve a good purpose down the road, and many of the players that I played with didn't look like and have not been qualified for a pension. And so we just thought it might be a good idea to help out down the road. There's some people who seem to be endowed with the ability, or it's handed down to them, and I'm not sure which, that have the opportunity to make money and do make money. And there's a lot of people smarter and better and work harder than I do that doesn't make as much money, and I don't feel that that's really a measure of one's success in all terms of success. So I feel that I have had more than my fair share of the luck, and that I really do owe some of it back to where I learned some of the lessons that put me where I am.
So for a lot of reasons, I guess because of just everything you've seen, a lot of people, you can talk to people in Dallas today, and they'll tell you, oh yeah, Cloyce Box was the real JR. But as I conclude my book, he really wasn't. And it's because he, in my estimation, he was much bigger figure than JR ever was. This is my picture of my mom. I was the youngest of 4 sons, so I was my mama's boy. I was very close to my mother. She's no longer alive. But I went away to college. I grew up out here in Frisco. Of course, now you have to realize when we moved to Frisco, the population was like 2014. Over the course of the next 10 years that we lived here while I was growing up, the population actually declined. It's like under 1,900. So Frisco was just a farm community. It was farming. It was, some horses and cattle operation stuff. There was a cotton gin. There was the railroad stop downtown. That's all Frisco. That's changed a lot. But I went away. I went off to college, and to become a radio, TV, film major. I was very passionate about television business. I think maybe growing up on this ranch in the middle of nowhere with nothing to do with, I mean, back in the day, you think there's nothing to do in Frisco now? Back in the 60s, there was really nothing to do at night. So we watched a lot of TV and movies, and I became sort of, you know, I idolized people in the press and stuff like that, so I thought that was cool. So I went away to college, and I wanted to be in radio, TV, and I called home one day my sophomore year, and I called Mom, and toward the end of our conversation, she said, well, there's some people out here doing some filming around the ranch right now. And I'm like, yeah, what's that about? She said, well, I don't really know, sweetheart, but they get here real early in the morning and they stay really late at night and they work really hard. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So I hung up the phone, and then my curiosity started eating at me a little bit. Because after all, I was a radio, TV filmmaker, right? So I called Mom back a few days later. I said, Mom, what is this show? What is this show about? Who are they doing it for? Oh, yeah, they're doing it for CBS. It's going to be a CBS news series. I said, well, what is it about? She said, it's about a family that lives on a ranch. I said, it's about a family that lives on a ranch? That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Who's going to watch something like that? Well, we both laughed about that, but my curiosity got the best of me, and a couple of weeks later was spring break. And so while all my fraternity brothers were headed south to the beach, I was headed north back up here to Frisco. And sure enough, when I arrived, Hollywood had come to town. And this was a big time LA production. I mean, this is the executive producer. I don't know if you can see him. On the far left is a guy named Leonard Katzman, was the executive producer. That's him right now. He's deceased now. This was the director of this particular show. Every show they did, they bring in a different director. So it's like every 1 hour show was like a little movie. And they would have a different director, and the next week they'd have a different director. It was really weird. And the interesting thing about this is, back in the day, I was pretty young. I was only like 22 years old. I was really shy about, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I was too shy or too cool to have my picture taken with these, what then became movie stars. None of them were famous back then. No one had ever heard of Jim Davis or Patrick Duffy. And I was just really shy, and I was so stupid looking back. It would be so cool to have all these pictures of these people now, but I don't have any pictures of me, but our housekeeper wasn't the least bit shy. Look at him, he's got the hat on, he's got a picture of Jim Davis, the young Patrick Duffy there. Now, one of the things that's interesting about a film crew is people think it's exciting and everything. It's really not. It's really hurry up and wait. It's like watching the paint dry. These guys, the technical people, are busy all the time. The lights, the sound, the camera people are tweaking things and adjusting things all the time. But the stars, the talent, the actresses, they have nothing to do about 80% of the time, right? And you can only drink so much root beer on the set. This is, and all these pictures, by the way, took place right across the street at the Brinkman Ranch, which used to be called the Box Ranch. By the way, it was never the South Fork Ranch, okay? South Fork is purely a fictional name that some writer in LA came up with. Brinkman's Ranch was never the South Fork Ranch. Our ranch was never the South Fork Ranch. The three families that owned it before us, they never called it the South Fork Ranch. It was always whatever the ranch after their last name was. So don't get mixed up on that. This is Victoria Principal. The guy in the middle is Patrick Duffy, and the girl on the right was Victoria Principal's stand-in. Meaning she would stand under the hot lights and let her makeup melt. And then when it was time to do the shot, they'd whisk in Victoria Principal and she would do the shot, right? That's what a stand-in does. These people were bored out of their minds because they had nothing to do. I mean, look at Patrick Duffy. He's got his hands right here. Don't you think if you just put like an iPhone or a smartphone right down there, he could have 10,000 Twitter just like that. There's nothing to do. And so they would spend a lot of time talking to us because they're doing a show about a family that lives on a ranch, and we're the family that lives on a ranch. So it's like, this is really cool. I think this is a great picture. This is Victoria Principal and our other housekeeper, Angelita, inside the house. And notice the thing about Victoria Principal here. She shouldn't have a stitch of makeup on, and she still looks disgustingly beautiful. So she truly was that way. Anyone remember Bobby's red Mercedes? That was a hot car back in those days. I bet some of you have one of those. Was it 450 SL, SEL, something like that? Yeah, they're trying to pretend like they don't know. They know, man. A couple other pictures I thought I'd just throw in here for friends. This is a picture of Patrick Duffy on the left, and anyone want to guess who the picture of the guy on the right is? Larry Hagman. That's Larry Hagman, who was the total goofball. In real life, he was nothing at all like his JR character, nothing at all. He kept everybody in stitches on the set all the time. This is a picture of my dad with Linda Gray. They were crazy about each other. I won't go into that. We were in church. This is a Victoria Principal. This picture was actually taken not during filming of the TV show. They had the Cattle Barons Ball out here in 1982. And she was probably paid to make an appearance. And she came to the event by herself. And so that's Victoria Principal. She was probably about 30, 32 in that picture. She started the show when she was 28. So I just thought this was super cool, right? I mean, who wouldn't want Hollywood to be on their front doorstep, you know? And my fraternity buddies were giving me such a hard time about this stuff. But I did talk my way onto the set in one scene of Dallas before I had to leave, or before they had to leave. Would y'all like to see that now? Okay. I thought you would. So I make sure you see this. Don't pay any attention to the movie stuff. It's all about hot clap. My only cameo on that.
The right thing. Hello, hi, Lucy. Have you met Susan?
No, hello.
Susan's one of our new little ladies at the office, and this is Lucy. She's my niece. Of course, Bobby's niece too.
Of course.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, how you doing? All right, Jim. How are you, buddy? Good, good. You sure when Susan around, make sure she meets everybody.
Sure.
Come here just a second. I want to talk to you.
Did Bobby hire you? No, JR. Oh, JR. He never misses a trick.
Nice hat. Coming up. That's all. That's the best I can do. Yeah, I had a couple of buddies that came out with me when we were doing this thing, and they were all excited because they got some footage of them in there, but they ended up on the edit room floor because you don't have any control over that, right? The editor does whatever they want to do, and so I'm like, sorry, you're trying, but somehow I made it. So I just thought this was really cool, and I had to go back to college. I was in college, and y'all know something about what my father was like, right? You saw how he grew up. I mean, if I had dropped out of school and run away and joined the circus, he would have had me crucified. So that was just not an option. So I had to go back to say goodbye to all my friends, say goodbye to all the movie stars and everything. And so I remember, when you go back from spring break to summer, it's not very long. And it goes by really fast, right? And in no time, it's summertime. And I'm all excited to come home for the summer. So I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be cool. The TV show's going to be there, and all my buddies are going to be hanging out on all these. And the ratings for the show were just soaring. I mean, everybody in Dallas just kind of exploded on the scene. Everybody was talking about it, and I was right in the middle of this. And so I called home again to Mom one day again, towards the end of summer. Towards the end of the school semester, beginning of summer. And I said, Mom, how's the Dallas thing doing? And she goes, oh, they're gone. I'm like, really? Why? Why are they gone? Who, what, where, why? And she goes, oh, well, sweetheart, you know how your daddy is. so particular about his ranch and his horses. And he thought they were too disruptive to the whole horse training operation. I'm like, well, I just want to get a gun and shoot every horse on that property. Because I mean, I like horses, but not that much. And so, you know, I'll be honest, I was heartbroken. I was crestfallen. I didn't know what to do. You know, you have to realize this is an age where, you know, once people left, there's no internet. There's no way to trace people down or track them down like there is today. There's no, you know, digital presence online or anything. So I'm like, once they left, they were just like gone forever. I'm just trying to figure out how to get them back, you know. And I was thinking, maybe if I could just get the Victoria Principal to come back, that would be enough.
Baby, come back. Good see. There was something in everything.
Anyway, that's my saga about the TV show. It was here one day, it was great, and then it was gone. So, the next little segment of my talk is not quite so happy, and that has to do with the fire. And this explains why the house is in the condition it is to this day. The backstory here is that my parents had a late-in-life divorce, and my mom moved off the ranch. She took the money and ran. My stepmother, who married my father, moved into this house, and realizing that another woman had lived there and raised 4 rowdy boys, what does the new wife need to do to a house that another woman has lived in for 21 years? She has to
Decorate.
Thank you, ladies. Redecorate. Ladies always get that. The guys are kind of like, oh yeah, but the women are like, redecorate. In the process of redecorating, a little bit too much redecorating went on, and it was just a tragic painting accident. And you have to realize that the Frisco Volunteer Fire Department was, well, I think you're looking at the Frisco Fire Department right here. They couldn't put that fire out. No way, no how. The house would still probably be smoking today if the Plano and McKinney fire departments had to come out. They had to get an aerial ladder to get on top of the fire and put it out. This is what happened next.
A lot of history going up in smoke. A lot of history. The ranch served as set for the original TV miniseries Dallas. Owner Cloyce Box is Frisco's chief benefactor, donating heavily to schools and the fire department. He once held pass receiving records for the Detroit Lions.
I don't think this is defeat. We'll come out of this okay. We'll start back just as soon as the debris is removed, and we'll rebuild.
Investigators say the fire started as painters were refinishing the east end of the home, but there's no official cause yet. Folks around here who know Cloyce Box, and everyone does, expect him to rebuild his local landmark even nicer than it was. Jim Douglas, Channel 5 News in Frisco.
Well, he was never able to rebuild it, unfortunately. He died in the middle of reconstruction, which was the day after. Although you can see some of these other ancillary buildings out there. This is maybe kind of hard to tell. This is a completely separate dwelling. We call this the cabana. And the cabana was left untouched, and there's still 5 or 6 houses out there that were untouched by the fire. So it's as much of a compound out there as it is anything. But the big house, of course, was the crown jewel of the whole thing. So then, last piece I thought I would show you was this.
So, anything new with you, Miss?
Oh,
I
I'm
like
very
your
sad
jacket.
today.
What's the
Rich.
matter?
You know, a dear friend of ours passed away
Yeah.
Sunday night, and one of Frank's dearest, longest friends, Cloyce Box. He played for the Detroit Lions. I think he was about 70 years old. He was one of these incredible human beings who was so robust and full of life and bigger than life. He was very tall and a Texan, and he loved horses
Very
and he loved
handsome
kids.
man, and a wonderful end for the old Detroit Lions team, or when they were at their peak in yesteryear, you know.
You know, he was, some of the people in this world who have achieved a great amount of wealth, not because he inherited, because he worked his butt off his whole life. And so he spent a lot of time that people never knew about, because he was a very quiet, gentle man, just taking care of so many people privately, quietly, anonymously, you know, and yet because he was a wealthy man, you're always you're always a target when you are, and that just used to break my heart. I used to think, I wish people could know what kind of human being he is.
So it was the end of an era, and for me, it's really a sad story. I tell you honestly, and I even had this experience this morning driving down to El Dorado. Every time I drive by the ranch, it's very sad for me, because when you grow up there, there's something about land and those childhood experiences that you're very bonded to. So it's hard to come tell the story, but it's interesting because it's an important part of Frisco's heritage and the future of the community. The last little thing I have to say about the story is how we lost the land. The land's no longer my family. It hadn't been in my family for many, many years. You have to understand, my dad was an entrepreneur, and he started with nothing. And entrepreneurs, the way that you make it is you have to take chances. You have to take risks, and that often involves debt. And he had been very successful all of his life. In the late 80s, he got caught up, like so many other people, in the frenzy of those times, and he went and did a big investment to build this massive cement plant down in Midlothian, Texas. Midlothian, if you don't know, is a town about 30 miles south of Dallas in, what's the name of that county down there? Can't think of it. Sorry. Ellis County. Thank you, Chuck. Ellis County. So he had to personally guarantee this stuff. He didn't have public capital. So that's what a businessman, wheeler dealer, a man who scales the American dream, that's what he does. The 80s were a decade that just turned a lot of Dallas families upside down. It turned our family upside down. My dad had pledged the ranch as collateral to build that cement plant. And Mr. Brinkman eventually, in the debacle of the savings and loan crisis, and every major merchant bank in Texas went broke in the late 80s. Not too much unlike the downturn we just had in 08 and 09. A real game changer. And so we just got poured out, folks. And that's the same way the Dallas Cowboys, in about the same time as well, when the Cowboys changed hands from the Murchison family, who handed it off to the Bright family, which was a banking family, and they all went broke. And then Jerry Jones came in, and to his credit, bought the thing for pennies on the dollar. And in similar fashion, Mr. Brinkman came in and bought this land. And he didn't buy it all at one big fell swoop. He bought it in chunks. To his credit, he's a very, very smart businessman. Mr. Brinkman had a very successful company in the late 80s that was surging. He had the Brinkman flashlight and the Brinkman barbecue pit grills. Okay, the Brinkman grill. And when Home Depot and Lowe's were expanding nationwide, he was filling up their stores with his hardware products. So he had a lot of money when a lot of other people were basically broke. So that's my story.
Baby, come back. Any kind of fool could see there was something in everything.
If anybody knows where Victoria Preschool is, be sure and get my business card before you leave. Come, kids.